Analytics Cloud. So we have to link the tenants. So that we basically did in the tenant linking area. So here we put, the Datasphere URL is this and Analytics Cloud URL is this. And when we click save, the product switch was enabled. So same way, there are a lot of things you can set up here. So some of the things we'll see how to do that, and some of the things are beyond the scope of this particular training. Same way, we have configuration. So in the configuration, again, while we are creating connections to SAP sources and non-SAP sources and on-prem sources and cloud sources, etc., we will have to do different settings here. So we will have to create trust. We'll have to whitelist IPs. We'll have to, we'll have to give the SSL certificate and so on. So whenever a particular thing is required, we'll see how to do that. And even the BW bridge, the configuration happens here. So we'll see, how those work and so on. So yeah, that's pretty much the navigational overview of the Datasphere, and also what are the key things that are in Datasphere that you can expect, right? So yeah, before we dive into space management, any questions?
Ram, one question. So you mentioned that between the spaces we can share, right? So what can we share? What are we sharing?
So, for example, sometimes, say, you have a currency conversion table in one of the spaces. So, we will have some spaces called technical spaces where we put things like all this currency conversion table, unit conversion table, and so on, because it is highly reusable, right? Across multiple spaces, I might want to have the currency conversion values. Then, instead of creating the table and view multiple times across different spaces, for example, this addresses table is required in another space. Then what I can do is I can go here and I can say share, and I can give a space name and I can share it. So what are we sharing? We can share anything. Most of the objects can be shared. So if you click and if the share button is enabled, that is shareable. This ER diagram, for example, is not shareable. So the share button is not enabled. Whereas this table, it is shareable. So when I am clicking, the share button is enabled. So whatever is shareable, automatically the share button is enabled. So once the share button is enabled, you can share that particular object from one space to other spaces.
Okay. But the transport is different from the sharing, right? So transport is not between spaces, but from one system to another system, like QA to prod.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, one question. How do you define how much space is needed for each space, or overall, what is the space that you have? It as it to one tenant? Is it based on the licensing, or how you define that?
Yes, good question. So yeah, you actually answered it also. Yeah, one thing is like the total space of your entire tenant. See here the system monitor. The first message itself, it is saying that monitor this to avoid out of memory errors, because one common thing that happens in Datasphere, or even when HANA was new, the very frequent thing you run into is the out of memory problem, or popularly known as OM issues, right? So the sizing is very important. The sizing, it's a big exercise itself, right? So you have some documentation called sizing guides. So we will see a little bit about it in the session about SAP Activate project implementation methodology. I'll show you what are the different things that SAP gives, like the templates and sizing guides and so on. So the sizing is a very first exercise that you do before you go and get a Datasphere tenant from SAP, right? So that's where you say, okay, I want this many licenses, and this is the size of the system, and this is the size of the disk I want, this much in memory I want, and so on. So it is kind of scalable to some extent. So for example, now Ankit can go ahead and again contact the SAP sales team and say that even though we sized it around 250 GB, now we have more participants, we want more space, maybe give us 500 GB. They will scale that. But sometimes it is not scalable because that entire cluster itself, For example, if they say that no, we cannot scale or something, then it's very rare. Mostly it is scalable. So it is good always to size it correctly. So that is the overall system's size. And coming to the space size, so whenever you create a space, so now we'll be seeing how to create a space. So whenever you create a space, by default 2 GB disk and 1 GB memory is allocated. So that is the default that SAP has decided. But in general, you can decide based on the need of that particular project. For example, when I was showing this image, I was saying that this is going to be a space for admin, this is going to be a space for finance, and so on. So you maybe working on that finance team itself, or you may be working on central security or basis team. Then you have to talk to the finance team and understand how many tables or what is the type of load they are going to put in that particular space, and you have to get the sizing from them. If they say finance is a very huge area, we are bringing in all the general ledger entries from S4 HANA to here, and day to day we are loading 1 million record, and typically this is the size of the table, then you will know a rough estimate of the space. So you can allocate maybe 40 GB or 50 GB, and as it grows you can add more and more spaces.
Can you extend the space after once you created?
Yes, we'll see that. Okay, so we'll start with creating a space. So before that, any other questions in general about the navigation or
Yes. Yes, Ram, I have one question. And the semantic onboarding, if you can go, I can see, could you please go into the semantic onboarding? See, I can see the SAP systems where it was mentioned here, S4HANA and premise BW for HANA, BW Bridge. Okay, so for example, think that I have a client requirement where my client landscape is on BW 7.5. So they want to migrate onto DataSphere. So then how can I connect from BW 7.5? These systems which are showing right now on your screen are fixed of the application of the DataSphere, or if the more licensed version of maybe something like an enterprise licensed version will have more sources displayed. What is it?
No. So these are the only things. Even in this is the enterprise actually licensed one. So in enterprise there are two options. So one is non-prod and prod. This is a non-prod environment. That's all. But you will see the same in the prod environment also. Coming to the question on you only see BW for HANA here. So we'll have a separate session where I'll show you the migration strategy or the BW investment protection that SAP is giving. So SAP's recommendation is, if you are running on BW 7.5, their recommendation is first for you to migrate to BW for HANA and then use BW Bridge to connect to DataSphere. So that's their idea. And about the semantic onboarding topic itself, so we have to understand another concept in DataSphere where one of the important core concepts. So again, I'll explain it on the third session, I guess, where we'll go through some slides and understand how DataSphere is different from other warehouses, because it protects that the semantic, which is basically the metadata or the meaning. So they are saying, the meaning is not lost. So if you connect to a BW and you consume something, it's not the data that we are consuming, which in other data. So if you are using something like Informatica, which is a popular ETL tool, it can extract data from any of the SAP system, but it will only extract data. It will not have that semantic. The whole rich semantic in the landscape will be lost. So that will not be lost in DataSphere. So that's why they have this option. So we'll go into details of the semantic onboarding.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Ram. I don't know, it might be very basic because I'm very new to this data analytics space. I mean, so this SAP DataSphere is purely a cloud-based solution, and if we want to do some analytics on this cloud-based solution, we have to get the data from the on-premise systems into this cloud. And so there might be billions of records, like in BW for HANA, might be financial data and material master data. And if we replicate again into this cloud system, what is the basic use actually? So why can't, as a customer, why do I need to go with this data sphere basically? Because when it is space limited, and if I want to buy space again and again to analyze the data, it's going to be very costly for me from the customer perspective. Why I should, what value it?
Actually, that is again partially very good question, but partially a wrong question also, because when you talk about space, even if you say on premise, nowadays they are not using the word on premise. Nowadays they are calling on premise system as private cloud, which means you own the server, you own the data center, or you own a server in the data center, and you still maintain all those things. So if your data is billions of records, and if you need 500 terabytes, then irrespective of whether it is on the cloud or if it is on your on premise, you still have to pay for the storage. The only thing is, in your on premise or the private cloud, you buy the hardware and you make a huge upfront payment, and you do not have recurring payments. Whereas in the cloud, yes, you will not have huge upfront payment, but you will make recurring payments. Again, it's up to the business whether they want to have very huge upfront payment, and then they want to reduce the annual payments, or they want to distribute their load into multiple smaller payments. But nowadays most companies are preferring to pay monthly, because the way things are changing are very quick, right? So if they invest in something and then they decide to kill the project, right, they don't want to do that anymore, then you will be left with a 500 TB server in your operation center, which is not being used at all. So which is a huge waste of money, right? So whereas if you bought DataSphere, and then you decide, okay, down the line, maybe 1 year or 2 year, you decide, we completely shut this down, we want to do something else, then there is no money lost. Like, it's an operational expense only. So it's up to companies to decide where to invest the money. But the question is very good, because one of the thing which you said is very right. When it comes to very large data, still the enterprise solutions are much better. Like SAP BW itself is much better in handling a huge ton of records. And then also, when it comes to replicating the same thing in the BW, which is already there, to a cloud, does it make sense? Yeah, I mean, some customers have the same question. They ask, does it make sense? And then SAP has some good slides to show, and then they argue, yes, it does make sense because of so and so reason. So the customers and SAP are in a middle ground, where it is agreed that, okay, whatever you have in BW, for time being you keep in BW, and whatever new you are developing, you develop in DataSphere, and slowly whatever is in BW, whatever is easier to migrate, you start migrating, or you start using BW Bridge and bring that into the space in DataSphere. So the idea is clear. There is a resistance from customer side saying that why, and then from SAP side also the idea is clear. The DataSphere is the way forward. So now they are in the middle ground, where SAP, the mandate, I mean, the good practice or the guideline is that, okay, now you have both BW and DataSphere, and whatever in BW, let it be, do not disturb it. But whatever new development you have to do, don't keep doing new in BW. Instead, start doing new things in DataSphere. That's the thing. That's the middle ground where the things are at.
Okay. So I mean, so this DataSphere also has its own database, right? Can we connect directly to this database through some command line or something like that, or is it only
Yes,
through?
yes. Not to the entire database. Like, if you have a HANA instance, for example, you can connect and do different things. Like, you can be the root user, you can be the sys, or you can be the sysadmin or DB admin, anything. That level of access you will not have, but every space will have a database schema. In that schema level, you can create a database user. So here you see, inside a space we have database users. So here I can create a database user, and then I can do both read and write in that schema level. So which is good. I mean, unlike other cloud projects, this is good. At least we have some access to the database level.
Okay. I mean, do we have a separate interface to connect to the database, like WebID, something like that?
We will see that. We'll see that. Yes, we have.
Okay.
I mean, it will come up with its own HANA Web ID, and we can also connect to our own standalone. I mean, Visual Studio Code or DB Viewer or something.
Okay. Thanks.
Ram, can I don't mind? I'm see for my question again. So the thing is, the moment when you mentioned about the space, I can see the space is a cold type. Do we have any other types of the spaces?
Okay. So that's a good question, and that's a good observation also. That's where SAP little bit messed up with the wording. So what the cold means is there is no alert for the system admin that there is enough space for this. There is enough disk storage for this particular space. The admin doesn't have to worry. So it is basically, if the utilization is less than 5%, it will be in cold. If the utilization is between 6 to 90%, it will be in healthy. And if it is more than 90%, it's like a warning to the system admin saying that there are this many spaces that are critical. And if it reaches 100%, the space will be automatically logged, saying that, okay, the admin, you have to take some action, or else the people who are using the space, they'll not be able to create any new things.
So if the situation of if the situation is something like 100%, if the still developer needs to add something else which adds up the space, I mean the size of the space, then in that case what we have to do?
Yeah. So the developer, if he doesn't have space admin role, he cannot do anything. He has to reach out to his space admin. The space admin can extend the space.
Okay. Perfect.
So for the developers, what will happen is they will be able to save their work. So in most of the objects, you will see two concepts. So whether you are creating a table, whether you are creating a view, there will be two concepts. So one will be save, right? So which will save whatever work you have done. For example, I have created 15 columns. I have set some key and everything. So I will be able to save, no issues. So in any case, my work will not be lost. The second option is called deploy. That's where the things are actually deployed to the database level. So this table is actually getting created in the database level by running some HANA query in the backend, etc. So if the space is not there, the developer will be able to save the table, but he will not be able to deploy it. That's when he will know there is a space constraint, and that's when he will reach out to the space admin saying that, you know what, this is the space called test and I'm having problem, and then the space admin will extend the space.
Okay.
Hi Ram, this is Nikhil. Actually, I joined late, so I could not introduce myself. But
hi Nikhil.
A couple of questions. One is regarding this cold thing. So I would start with that. So you said that it's 5% usage, right? Now the usage could be of two types. One is disk usage, where I can say I allotted like 1 GB and I'm still using 50%, right? Another usage could be like I'm having too many reports, so I have the CPU consumption is high. So when it says,
so here it's only about the storage. So here the storage is also two types of storage. So that's why we will be creating a space now. So let's start creating a space, and then I think this will be answered. If not, you again ask me at the end of it.
Okay, so I'll wait for that. So the part 2 I had was regarding the backend. So what I know is HANA Cloud is the backend for DataSphere.
Exactly.
And HANA Cloud table has a limitation of 2 billion records. At least I know from ICC point of view, that is what it holds, because my current customer, we are facing too much of problem around that. So is it same applicable to DataSphere also? It's 2 billion records?
Yes, but they have done some logical partitioning in the backend. They have technically handled it. So yes, your tables can grow beyond that limitation. But at the HANA Cloud level, yes, you are right. Still the limitation is there. But on top of that HANA Cloud, here they have built an entire application. So in the application logic, they have handled some of those limitations.
Okay, thank you.
Ram,
I
we don't see the create space. Is it limited by the role that only you can create spaces?
Oh, is it? Can
Yeah, I
you
sent
share your
this.
screen?
Yeah, I pasted
Oh,
in the chat.
you pasted
So
a
I don't see
screenshot?
the create button. Yeah.
Okay, Gokul. Okay, so I will check your user now. So let's see what access you have. Gokul
Ram,
has.
to inform you, even mine is also the same.
Yeah, I think all of you have
create
the
button.
same access. So if I check one, I think everyone will have the same thing. So you have DB consumer, DB space administrator is there. So ideally, yeah, you should be able to create space. So maybe one of you, can you share your screen?
Let me share mine.
Yeah.
Ram, short question before we are presenting in the different way. So, are we can also connect using about non-cumulative key figures?
Yes. So we'll see about exception aggregation. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Ram, here
Thank
you
you,
go,
Chris.
Ram. I'm sharing my screen.
Mhm.
So if you can see, I'm in the space management. So here, nothing is available for me to create.
Okay. So can you go to the okay. So can you go to the users, security users? I don't see security itself. Just
Yeah, we don't have access to security tab also. Only you have it.
Yeah.
strange.
Someone
So I'll do one thing. I'll make you the DW administrator itself. Generally, DW space administration should be enough to do that. But let me add you as a DW admin itself and then see if that fixes the problem. I'll give that role to all of you. So who shall I give it to now for testing?
You can give it to me. I'm sharing my screen.
Okay. So is this Gokul or Santosh?
I'm Santosh.
Santosh. Okay. Okay. I'll add you as the DB admin. Then yeah, can you have to log out once and log in again?
I do.
Is the password been shared? Because I'm not able to reset the password to.
That you can. I think you can give forgot password and then you will get a mail if you have.
Yeah, I did that. I didn't get the email from past 1 hour, so I was just checking.
Okay. I'm not sure. Anyone facing this same issue also? Like, you have any password related issues?
No, the mail came to the spam folder. I don't know if you have already checked it. I tried it and I got the password.
So one thing I can say is sometimes yeah, you again have to refresh it. Sometimes it happens because of the IDP. So yeah, one thing is sometimes from SAP.
Can you scroll down, Santosh? Can you scroll down? You can have the option.
Cannot run that. Again,
You
you
can
have to go to
refresh
that
it.
URL. So sometimes, yeah, SAP mails might not come. It will take some time, or sometimes like it can end up in your spam folder. So I would say check the spam folder, or if you want, I can also regenerate your mail from the DataSphere. So what's your username? Like I can regenerate it for you.
It's USSHA.
Usha, okay. SSHA. Okay, so I'm again.
Yeah. No, I can see this.
Okay, now you can see this, right? So yeah, so I will make then everyone DW admin. So maybe I'll share my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, so one way we can do that is I can go ahead and I can add everyone here as DW admin. That's one way to do that. The other way I can do that is I can download all your users as an Excel, uh, and then I can add that particular privilege, and then I can again import all the users at once. So that is also another way in which we can do that. So if you see here, when you download all the users, get username, last name, all these attributes, and then we have something called as the roles, right? So in that roles, if I want to mimic my roles, so which is this one, Ram underscore trainer, right? So I can copy that line and then I can paste that to all of you, right? And then you also and all of you also, and I can save this file. And now I can go back and I can import users from file, and we'll select this file. You have to map the columns automatically. It should map. So first name, last name, display name, roles, everything. And we can say okay and import. You all don't have to do this. I'm just showing you that there is an option like this also. So this is how we create users as well in multiple tenants. So we have development tenant, quality, and production. So sometimes when you want to create the users in the other tenants, you can export from one tenant and import it in other tenants. So yeah, once I do this, I think all your users should have roles. So now can you all log out once and reopen? Then you should have the access. And for Usha, I think to try the mail once again. If it is not coming to you, maybe I can add +1 or something to your email ID, and that will trigger a new mail to that new mail ID. Only thing is, every time you log in, you have to log in with that ID. Yeah, I would say you can try it once to give forget password, and that's the best way. Or I can even deactivate you. And let me know if you get a mail for the deactivation.
Yeah, just checking.
So
No,
mail
I
ID
haven't.
correct? Can you check once?
Yeah.
On my screen?
Yeah, now I got the deactivated.
Okay, now again I'll activate you. So you will again get a mail for the activation. So now maybe can you share your screen and let's see what's happening if you say forget password or something.
Yeah, just a minute. Yeah, I got the welcome back.
Yeah, Santosh, you have a question? No, okay.
Yeah. So my next question is, Ram, at the moment when we talk about the transports in this application DataSphere, so is it like, do we follow like in SAC, like, file system, or it is just, export and import into the different landscape systems? What is that process?
Yeah, only cloud storage. Even in SAC, the file system is going away, right? So same way here, it's only content network.
It is only content network.
Content.
I'm
the
sorry,
cloud
because
storage.
I'm not familiar with this process basically.
So it's only cloud storage. So there is nothing in the file system that is stored.
Okay, fine. That means we export the file and we add it into this cloud storage. You mean? How does it go?
No, by automatically it will use the cloud. So there is a background network which is called content network that connects the different. So if I have 4 or 5 tenants, all the tenants will be connected in that content network. So when I export from one system, I can import it to all the other connected systems.
Oh, okay. So that means now here the transport mechanism is happens through content network, right? The technical name of that.
Yeah, correct.
So Ram, this is Nikhil again. So I think no longer. So I had a previous customer on DataSphere who was using a single tenant, and they were using spaces. I know it's not the recommended line from SAP, but not all customers have enough money to have multiple tenants. So we had reviewed with SAP, and though they recommended 2 tenants, but we still had because it was like a prototype. So we had a single tenant, and we were using spaces to demarcate dev QP kind of thing, and that we could use the file system to export and then change the tenant. I mean the source landscape.
The space.
Yeah. So no, I think now it won't be possible, right?
No, now also you can export from one space and import it to another space. That's possible. The only thing is it will not be through file system. It will still be through content network.
Okay, I see.
Okay, so now we'll see about creating spaces. And one request, like if you are also creating spaces, that's fine. But create it with your name as the prefix, so that when we are doing some housekeeping activity, we'll be deleting all the unwanted spaces. But if it is in a participant name, we'll not delete it, right? So if you are, Santosh, you can create any space, any number of space, but just keep Santosh as the prefix, Santosh _1, maybe Santosh _ test, like that, so that we'll know it is your space.
Got that.
Okay. So now I'll show you how to create spaces. So you can click this create button. Now you should all have this. If any of you still missing it, let me know. So when you click the create space button, you have to give a space name and space ID. Here, the space ID will be permanent. Space name, yes, after creating also you can change. It is like a description. You can change it anytime. But the space ID, once it gets created, it's not changeable. So if I am going to create a space called Ram _1. So in the space name, I can have spaces, I can have special characters, all those things. But in the technical name or the space ID, it will automatically replace all these things with _. So if I want a different technical name, I can give it. But yeah, it should be in all caps, only numbers and letters, and special character is _. And the one thing to remember is you cannot change the technical name. So with that, I can click the create button. Space gets created, right? So I can already see that the space ID is not editable and space name is editable. So let's see the different things that we can configure inside a space. The very first thing, which is called the general settings. So here we have a description where you can write about this space. So if some new user is coming to Datasphere, and if they are seeing all these spaces, if they want to understand what this space is used for, generally here you will write about the project description. You will say that this is a finance space where we use all the objects related to general ledger and account receivable, account payable, etc. So whatever is relevant for this space, a very long description you can give here. And then we have a drop down called source language. So that is useful for translation, because we'll see later a concept called translation. In that, we'll be seeing how we can translate the descriptions like product text or material description, etc., from one language to another. And in general, the system wants to know what is the source language. So by default, you can set for an entire space something as the source language. So if you want that, you can give, maybe I can say everything I create in this space, the source language is English. Yes, this can be changed later, or it can be set as no source language also. So we'll see about this in detail when we talk about the translation. Now coming to the space storage. So the ideal recommendation from SAP is to have at least 50% of in-memory space allocated. Right. So what is in-memory space and what is disk space? So disk space is the total storage allocated for this space. So whatever tables that we are going to create in this space, right, that will use the storage, right? And if I have 100% in memory, that means whatever is in my disk can also be in memory. But that is not ideal, because whenever we are sizing the system, whenever the Datasphere system we got, it will be generally in that 1:2 ratio, or even 1:4 ratio, or something like that. So we'll have more disk compared to the memory. So only for critical spaces where you have very time critical workloads or something where everything has to be in memory, everything has to be performance efficient. In that space, maybe you can keep 100% in memory. And whenever the space is very uh, not very significant, it is like all things related to internal audit, log, security, those kind of non-business critical reports, then you can reduce the amount of in-memory and you can give the more disk storage. So what is the difference? So anything that has to run, it has to come from disk to in-memory before it can run, right? So either it be table or anything, the data first has to go from disk to memory before it can run. So the more in-memory it has, the more things will be available readily on the memory, so the more performance will be there. The less in memory you have, every time swapping will happen. So if you call a new table, data from a new table, so something in the memory has to be offloaded and something from the disk has to be onloaded to the memory. So that way, so the here the general guideline is 1:2 ratio. So whatever storage, the storage you have to decide by talking to the actual people who are going to work on the space. So if it is a finance team, you if you are also from the finance team, then fine, you know the size, you will do it. If you are creating space for some other team, then talk to that team, understand their sizing requirement, and if they say we want 10 GB, then put 10 GB. And then the general guideline is 50% of this disk is memory. That's the general guideline. But if you want a very high performance critical spaces, you go for full in memory. Or if you want some non-critical spaces, you go for less in memory, right?
And Ram,
Again,
again, the disk you're saying, so it can be to the maximum whatever you're buying, right? So the
yeah,
disk
it
space,
can go to
how
the max.
but is that already predefined, or you can put anything?
Predefined is 2 and 1, and if you want to see the entire space available for your system, you can go to the system monitor and then you can check this data sphere. I think it has 500 GB, so you can see it here, right? So I went from system monitor, so you can see it
Mhm.
here. Disks assigned to spaces for storage. So not 500 GB, we have 250 GB. So
Got
I would recommend, like, while you are creating spaces, the 2 GB space is more than enough for all the things that we are going to do. So don't increase the space. If required in future, you can adjust it. So no issues. So for while you are creating for the test purpose, just create the 2 GB and 1 GB variant.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay, so those are the general settings, right? So one setting is the translation, the other setting is the storage. Now coming to the workload management. Now some of you have worked in basis, and some of you have worked with the BW system and so on, and you already know about. Uh, okay, once again, let me. Okay, so we'll come to this workload management, but before that, I'll tell you about the user assignment, right? So I have a space now created, and I want to assign some users to this space. I want to assign administrators, I want to assign normal users like the consumers, the view creators, and all those people. So, how do I assign that? Previously, we can directly assign users, all right? So I can just say, I want Naresh, I want Mentor Spool, I want Gokul. I can just select few users, and just here there will be a add button. That's all. But now there is a concept called scoped roles. So the scoped roles, it is like this. So you have users, right? So you have users, and then you have another box which is called scoped roles. And let me have multiple users. right? And then we will have multiple scoped roles, and we will have multiple spaces, right? So I will maybe change the color of these things. So what the scope role does is, so previously each space we were directly assigning the users. So the users we will assign with whatever read write or whatever writes directly to the spaces. So there is a tight coupling between the users and the spaces, and that is not very efficient because you might have to assign the same set of people to different spaces and things like that. So now what happened is they have something called as a scoped role, which is in between. So in the scoped role, you add both, connection to the, so the users will be assigned to the scoped roles, and then the scoped role will also have the spaces in their scope. So what will happen is, whenever you are adding new scope to that scoped role, whichever user is already assigned to that scoped roles, they will automatically be added to the spaces. So let's see it in the system. I know now this diagram might be a little confusing. Let's see it in the system. Again, let's come back to this diagram. So now I see that there is a user assignment section. I am trying to add a user. For example, I am trying to add Gokul and I am going next. And it is saying that the space is not added to any scoped role. To be able to add users to the space, it must first be added to one or more scoped roles. So it is basically saying for this particular space, which I am creating now, there is no scoped role defined. So let's see what is a scoped role and how do we create it. So when you go to security, there is a section called roles, right? So I can open it in a new tab. So under the roles, there are two types of roles. So one is called your standard role, right? And then another is called your scoped role. So what is this scoped role? Right? So what are standard roles and what are scoped roles? So the standard roles are like, that things that give you access to all these options. So for example, previously, some of you are saying that you do not see the create button in the space management, right? Because you did not have the DB administrator role, right? So if I go inside the DB administrator, I will see that it will give certain permissions. For example, under space management, the create permission is there. For spaces, create permission is there in the DB administrator. So previously, we have only assigned you the space administrator. So if I go inside the space administrator, probably that permission will not be there. I'll go and check. So you see here spaces create, the permission is not there. That's why when Ankit assigned all of you, the DW space administrator, you did not have access to create spaces. But now you are all DB, the directly the data warehouse administrators. So you have all the access in the system. So these type of standard roles will give you object access. They will make some options available to you or some options not available to you, irrespective of the spaces. They are like overall system level roles, right? Whereas scoped roles are a copy of the standard roles only, but they are having something called a scope which will limit them to certain spaces. So if you see here in the normal role at the bottom, you can see they have only users, right? So you create a role and it is system wide. The scope of that role is entire system, and you can assign users directly. That is a normal role. Whereas a scope role, for example, see, we have DW space administrator. This is normal role. Whereas the same thing, DW space administrator, this is a scoped role, because here you have two things. So one is the users, yes. The other is the scopes. So what are the scopes? They are not system wide. In the scope, you can add certain spaces. So what happens when you assign this role to a user? That users will have access to those selected scopes. So for example, Now I created a new space called RAM. So I am adding that RAM one space here. So in the scope of this particular role, right? So now what happens? So whichever user is there, so I can go to users and find out who are all the users who are assigned. So there are almost 57 users. So I can decide like, okay, so which are all the spaces for which this particular role applies, right? That's why it is called a scoped role. I can choose all the spaces and make it like a global role, or I can choose only certain spaces and then make it scoped to only that space. So now I have added this new space which I created. So now if I go back to my space and if I try to add a user now, for example, I'm trying to add myself and I go next. Now it will list all the roles which has this particular space in their scope. So at the moment I have only one role like that. So I see only one role. So if I create another role, for example, if you want to create a role from scratch, you can click create a new scoped role. You can give a name. For example, you are giving your own spaces, right? So I can say Santosh space admin. So I am creating a scoped role for the Santosh space. So I am giving a naming convention like Santosh space admin, and then I create it. So when it's getting created, it will ask you whether you want to start from scratch or you want to use some role as the role template. So if I say, I want to use, the DW space administrator as the template, I can select that. And the moment I say, okay, some of the checkboxes will be automatically checked because I have used a template. So from that original role, whatever is the permissions, those permissions are copied here. Now I can save this particular scoped role, and then I can also add it to the scope. So for example, if Santosh has a space, I want to add it to the Santosh space. So I'm adding it and I say save. Now it will be available only to the Santosh space. So now if I go to the RAM space, and even if I try to add Santosh to this particular space, I will only see my scope role because that role only had my space in the scope. Now, if I want this role, Santosh space admin, also to affect my space, then I can go to the scope and then I can add my space also. So now this particular role is applicable to two scopes or two spaces, right? So now if I go back here, if I try to add again Santosh or anyone to my space, now I will see two roles. So one is this, one is that. I can add any one of the role. And then we know that we copied the space administrator profile, right? So the space administrator is already there. And can one of you explain why there is this 19 users? I only added Santosh, right? But how did the 19 users automatically get added?
Because they're assigned to the same role, right?
Yes.
I think
so
it's
they are
the
all,
administrator role which was given to everyone.
yes. So because they are all part of this role, and yes, you are also right. They are all part of the template role that I used. They are all original space administrator users. And so whenever I assigned any scope role, even though that particular scope role itself had like only one user, it is showing as one user, but the original space administrator, there are 19 users. So it is adding all the 19 users. So to our role, yeah, you can either keep everyone, or you can remove some of them. For example, I want to remove all of this and I want to keep only Amar, then I can do that. Yeah, so basically that is the scoped role. So that is one of the intermediate concepts.
Ram, sorry to interrupt. So, if you is there any possible to restrict the scope role instead of getting all the global roles like data warehousing roles?
Yeah. So in the scoped role, actually we are using a role template, but without using a role template, you can only set whatever permissions they want. So if I start a scope role, I will say minimal role, and then I want to give only one type of permission. Maybe for viewing only, I want to give rights, only read rights. Then here, when it asks me to select a template, I can click, sorry, not cancel. I should click the minimal role. So in SAC, we can start with without a role template, but here you have to select only at least one role. So for minimal role, I have to select at least the viewer. So it will add the minimum roles. So only if you see the only in the read column, there will be checks and there will be not other roles. So this is the minimum role you can give some user in one space. But other than this, there is no other minimum scope you can give, and this is not editable also, so you cannot go and you cannot make edits.
So one role can be assigned to different spaces and scope role.
So yes, so one role can be assigned to multiple spaces, and multiple roles can be assigned to one space. Multiple users can be assigned to multiple roles. So there is a many to many relationship. So yeah, like this. And what will happen is all of that will become like a union. So if you are adding 2-3 roles to one space with multiple users, so whichever user, so for example, these 2 users, I am assigning to a administrator role to this space, whereas these 2 users, I am assigning to a viewer role to the same space. Then what will happen? The users C and D can only view in this space, whereas users A and B can do all the admin activity in the space. And the same role, I can use it across multiple spaces. For example, this is always an admin role, and I can define multiple scopes or spaces, and I can use the same role. Same way, viewer role also, I can define multiple scopes and can use it in multiple spaces.
So Ram, you cannot create a new space using a scoped role. That means, because scope is already on the existing space. So if I have to create a new
that's
space,
a very good question. So that's where one thing you have to observe. That's a very great question. So when you create a space, right? So I'm creating Ram underscore sample, right? So you observe here. So the space is created, right? But here is a kind of a deadlock situation. So without the space being deployed, I cannot create a scoped role. So that's why the system is automatically deploying the space for me. So previously it used to be we have to manually deploy the space, right? After doing all the setting, even after adding all the users, only we'll click the deploy button. But now what the system is doing is, after the scoped role got introduced, so whenever you come into the space itself, initially it will do one deploy. So the status is deployed. So why is it doing that deploy is because, like he said, we need a space to create a scoped role, and we need a scoped role to assign users to a space. So that's why as soon as you give a name for a space, the system will start creating the space, it will deploy it. And if you change some settings, you will again redeploy only. But the moment you create a space, it gets deployed. And that is because then only you can create a scoped role. So if you go to a role and if you find in the scope now, I will already see the space, even though I think that I have not deployed it yet, but the system automatically deployed that for me. So yeah.
So if I want to create and display a different role to different user, I want to create 2 roles for that space.
You can create any number of roles for that one space.
No. My question is that for that scenario, if you want to give one to user to display and other to create something in that specific space. So I have to create 2 specific role, or in one role it can be done.
Okay, so similar role in 2 spaces you are asking. For example, you want to make 2 people only viewer in space A and in space B also.
Yes.
Yeah, then one role is enough. But in the scope, you have to add the 2 spaces. For example, I created one role called the minimum role, right? The DW scoped viewer. So in this, the people will have only viewer privileges. If I want that to be in 2 spaces, then in the role, I have to go to the scopes, and then I have to add, okay, for Ram, for Santosh, these 2 spaces, the role will be used.
I think it's a confusing thing actually, but what we have learned before is first you decide what the person needs to do. Based on
Correct.
that, you create scoped role. So, like, let's say I want
Correct.
modeler, right? So I'll create one scoped role called modeler, another scoped role called viewer or consumer.
Correct.
And then let's
Correct.
say person A is only modeler. Let's assign that person A to that scoped role. Now,
Correct.
now that person needs to be a modeler in which space? That is the question to be asked. Like
No,
I can
no.
be
See here. The thing is, now if you want modeler as a role for multiple spaces, right? Then you can create a role called modeler, and you can assign that modeler scope to multiple spaces. But now the thing is, if you want, for example, this user A as a modeler in the finance space, but the same user A should be a viewer in another space, then the thing is, yes, I have created a modeler role which is in both spaces, and I have created the viewer role which is again also assigned to both spaces. The only thing is that when I am doing the user assignment or user adding to the space using the scope role, I have to choose, okay, so in the space A I have to add user A as the modeler, whereas in the space B I have to add user A as the viewer.
viewer.
So
Yeah.
the
Correct.
relationship will be between the space and the role itself, and then again here between the user and the scope role. But this relationship is not a very strong relationship. You can remove them if you want from the space itself. Only the relationship between the space and the scope role are the strong relationship.
Yeah, correct. Otherwise, it will become like a union, right? I mean, if you
Correct.
give one user both the scoped roles, and if yeah, I mean, it will become like a union if you don't decouple user with the space with the role actually.
Yeah, that's a very good
Yeah.
question. And
Yeah, Ram, you have created Ram underscore sample as a space, right? So shall we go into the security and see whether the deployment has done for the scope role?
yeah, sure. Yeah, I was going to show that, I think.
Yeah,
And-
I know.
Yeah, so Ram underscore sample, yes.
Okay. So it is you're going here in the security, and what is the navigation? I'm missing it because it is very fast.
Okay, so in security, under roles, I am selecting my DW scope viewer, which is the minimum role. So here I am clicking the scopes. So I can either click the role and then here I can come and open the scopes from here, or I can directly from here itself, I can directly click the scopes and that opens the scopes.
Oh, okay. And okay, fine. Could you, if you don't mind, could you please go back? In the navigation of the roles, scoped roles. So we are taking it BW scope viewer. Can we take anything else like BW scope consumer? In that also, can I see that?
Yeah. So all the spaces deployed in your system will be listed here under the available spaces.
Oh, okay. Got that.
So Ram, does it still allow to edit the SAP standard role, or it has stopped?
It does, like I said, you can use them as a role template, but you cannot do the actual edit. So it will not allow you. Okay, so now getting back to the creation of spaces. So we have understood about the user assignment, right? So you first have to create scoped roles. So for a space, what types of users are generally required? So majorly we'll discuss about some of the standard roles so that you understand what are they, right? So catalog will come later when you are discussing about catalog. So for now, don't think about them. DW administrator is the super role, like it is having all access to everything in a DataSphere system. So that is a global role that doesn't have to do anything within a space. So it is like a only applicable for the global role. And then we come to the other DW roles like the consumer, integrator, modeler, and space administrator and support user, right? So viewer, as the name suggests, you all can understand what is a viewer. So if you open the viewer, you will readily see what are the permissions that are given to the viewer, right? So the DW viewer has all read access only, and that too for all the things like business builder, data access control, and all these different things they can view. And some of the things they even can't even view. The data access control, for example, they can't even view, right? So this is the minimum view. This is the minimum role you can assign someone, right? And then coming to the next role is the DW consumer. So if you come to consumer, so these are the original roles. So here you can make adjustments. Only thing is in scoped role, you cannot make adjustments. Scoped roles are based on one of these original roles. So if you want a custom role, what you have to do is, so you have to click here to create a new custom role first. And then that custom role can be used to create the further scoped roles, right? So we'll come to the custom roles. But for now,
So,
I'll walk you through the standard roles.
Before you proceed here, so my question was basically on this. The original role which SAP ships, the standard like DW administrator, DW consumer, I think it's editable. I could see you could edit it, but
Yeah,
but
scoped roles you cannot edit it. But the recommendation is in the standard roles you should not edit it, because in the future when SAP release some updates, if they are introducing new permissions, you will lose all the edits you have done. So the recommendation from SAP is whenever you want to edit a standard role, you have to save as a custom role.
Yeah, so
that's a good
point. Go back. If you could just go back, actually, I think you have answered it, but I'll just, for everybody's clarity, I will just mention that. So these are the standard roles, right? Like DW administrator, that is what ships from SAP, right?
Correct.
Now,
correct.
We can actually edit it, but it's not advisable for the reason you mentioned, that if tomorrow new permission is added, it will be overwritten, correct?
Correct.
Now, what SAP suggests, and maybe I'm wrong, you could correct it. It says that you create a new custom role, use the existing shipped role as a template, right? So, and then use that in your scoped. Is the assumption correct?
Yes. Okay. So now I am saying DW admin. So let's start with the Z DW admin. Okay. And then I say create. So the moment I create it, I have an option to select one of them as the template. So here I can start with blank also if I want to go into the details of setting all the permissions, but I'll create based on the standard DWC administrator role. So here our thing, like in our company, it is said that the administrator can do anything except they cannot, do the transports, because we don't want all the people to do the transports. We have a separate team that handles the transportation. So I am creating a standard role which has all permissions like the administrator except this lifecycle management. So I am removing that, and also I think they should not also do the connection. So I am removing that as well. So this way I can create a custom role. This is one way to create a custom role. Or the other thing is, sometimes you don't even have to remove any permissions. You want a standard role itself, and you want to maybe add more permissions. So for example, you want the consumer as a standard role, you just have to add few more permissions. You want to give them access in the business builder also. So I am giving read access in the business builder and business catalog. But now I can save it only as a different custom role. I cannot, save it as the standard role. So even though the standard role is editable, you do not have the save option. So you cannot save it. So previously, when SAP allowed to save it, what happened is people use the standard role, even though there was a recommendation, people edited it. And whenever SAP is releasing a new update, so now I have added two new ticks that get lost when the SAP is updating. So that's where people will complain to SAP raising tickets, and then SAP will say, you didn't follow the recommendation. To avoid that, now even though it looks like it is editable, it's editable, but you have to save it under a different name. So both ways you can create a custom.
What I was mentioning actually before, it allowed us to save. Now it is not allowing, which is a good thing.
Correct. So now, there is two ways basically. So you can start with a custom role, or you can go to a standard role and you can edit it and then save it as a custom role. And these roles, like in the top, we are creating, they are all just standard. I mean, they are all roles, not scoped roles. So once I create custom role, for example, the ZDW admin and etc., like now I can again create role, right? And then I can create it. And then here you see the custom role that we created will also appear as a template. So now we can create a custom scoped role. So if the question or if the ask is like you want to create a scoped role, but you have to customize it, then you should not answer saying that, yeah, no, the scope roles are not customizable. The actual approach is first you have to create a custom role as a normal role, and then you have to create a scoped role for that custom role. The scoped role is doing nothing but adding scopes or spaces to a standard role. That's all.
So user will be added to the standard roles.
Yeah, user will be added to the standard roles, and when you are adding to the custom roles also, sometimes when you see here these some of the okay, that's where we were going through the standard roles. So let me complete that. So for some of these roles, right, it allows or it takes the users from the standard role itself. For example, the administrators. Why? Because they have special meaning inside a space. So for example, in here you see there is a column itself that says space administrator, right? That's why in general in a DataSphere system also, whenever there are space administrators, there will be some common space administrators from the security team. For example, your company will have a security team, irrespective of whether it is a finance space, whether it is a HR space, whether it's whatever space may be, there will be 2 or 3 standard space administrators who are not part of that space team, but they are the security team or the admin team, like that, right? So for that type of users, you can also assign users to the special, like the scope rules. Whereas there will be roles which are only particular to a space, that it's not system wide. At the same time, you cannot add users to those type of roles. So automatically you can see that some of these roles which does not allow the user assignment, and they are they are only you can only assign scopes. And then there are some roles which are special, kind of the admin role, and where you can assign the users to it directly. Yeah, so just give me a few minutes. Let's complete all these role related, standard role related discussion, right? So what is this consumer role? So if you go here, you see this consumer role, it only allows you for data warehouse consumption and space files. So what is this role useful for? If we have not seen it so far, so while we are creating views and all, you can enable a particular view for consumption. Consumption meaning outside of DataSphere, like from a SAC system or any reporting tool. You want to connect to DataSphere, and then you want to consume the view as a data source. Then in that case, for example, we have a analytics model here. So I'll open that. So here you will see a button that says enable for consumption. So analytic models are anyways enabled for consumption. So we can see the normal views also where you have that button that says enable for consumption. So you see here expose for consumption. So if I enable this button, what happens is now if I go to SAC or any other reporting tool, I should be able to consume this view. So if I am going to create a user, that will be used for only this purpose, right? So for external purpose, like I am going to use SAC or something from where I'll just be reading and consuming some views, etc. And I will not even require to log into DataSphere directly and do anything. Then that I can use this consumer role, right? So the DW consumer role, which is like not even a DataSphere role. That's why I didn't say that as the minimum role. So you can think that why I set the DB viewer as the minimum role and not the consumer as the minimum role, because the DW consumer, it's not even a full-fledged DataSphere role. If you assign this to someone, they will not be able to do anything. They will not be able to do viewing also. It's only for consumption. So we will see when we are doing SAC what is the consumption and so on. But yeah, this is not even the minimum role for the data sphere. This is only for the consumption outside of the data sphere. Now coming to the integrator role. So what is the integrator? Again, from the name, you can say. So we saw what is data integration, which is like creating connections and bringing in data and so on, right? So for that purpose, this integrator role is suitable. So if you have a particular users who are only focused on connecting different systems to your data sphere, then they have minimum role, like you have space and they have file access and they have the access to the connection, and then they have access to the data integrator, etc. So this is a role which is useful for integrating data sphere to the source systems, right? Again, this looks like a minimum role, but this is not again a full-fledged data sphere role. If you again assign it to a user, they will not be able to access the data builder, they will not be able to access the business builder, etc. These are all very specific roles. So the integrator role is for connecting data sphere to the source systems. Consumer role is for connecting data sphere as the source for some reporting systems. Now modeler is a full-fledged role where they are not administrators, they cannot do space administration and all, but they can do everything else. They can create model, they can they can do a lot of things in data builder as well as the business builder, etc. So if you come here, they not only have read, they have update, delete, create, everything in both business builder, in data builder, etc. So this is kind of a full-fledged role, but still they will not have certain permissions. For example, in spaces, they don't have update, they don't have delete, etc. So this is just below the administrator. So they have access to create everything, but they are not the full-fledged admins. So then comes the database administrator, the space administrator. So who will have the full-fledged permissions inside a space? They can do everything the modeler can do. Other than that, they can update the space, they can delete the space and all those things. This is a full, very, they have everything inside a space. And then we have support user and viewer. Viewer, we already saw the minimum role. The support user is a special role. So if you remember, we talked about it, right? So the one difference with the support user, if I understand correctly, is that the support user does not consume a license. So if you go here, if you see the support user we created, so if you see here, the license is blank. So if I am having a data sphere system and if I am raising a complaint to SAP, and if I create a support user, irrespective of how many support users I create, maybe I am creating 2, 3, 4 support users also for 4 different incidents. It's not required actually. One support user is enough. You can share the same in all the incidents. But sometimes you will not know. I will be reporting one incident, you will be reporting another incident. So maybe we will create 2 support users at one time. So that doesn't mean it will use one data sphere license. All the support roles are license free, so they will not consume the license. So this is for special purpose. This is for SAP to look into your system. Again, this is not a role you will be assigning to any of your users. So again, yeah, not a typical role. So the typical roles you will find in a space will be these 3 things: the viewer, the modeler, and the administrator. So the administrator will be given to very few people who will be administrating the entire space. They can lock the space, they can unlock the space, they can increase storage, they can delete the space, they can add more users, all that things they can do. So this is a very careful role you can assign to few people. And then all of us, like whoever is attending this training, maybe you will be working in a technical role as a technical consultant, and probably the best role that suits you is the DW modeler. That will give you every access except the administration access. You cannot delete a space, you cannot do certain things that the administrator can. But you will be able to create everything in data builder, create everything in business builder, delete, update everything, etc. Whereas the viewer, they can view all the things in all the options, but they cannot update, they cannot delete, etc. This is the typical role we'll assign to business users if they just want to take a look, or we will create a slightly better viewer role where we give certain access to the business user. Maybe they can only create certain things in the business builder, not in the data builder, like that. So like we saw, for that purposes we can create custom roles. So now these are all general roles, right? And they will give you access in the whole system level, but not specific to a space level, right? So if you want to give space level access, you have to use the scoped roles, and the scoped roles will be copy of these actual roles, and they can be copy of the standard roles or the custom roles, and they have scopes. And sometimes some of the scope roles, they can also allow you to add users. Some of the scope roles, they doesn't make sense to allow adding users directly, so they will not allow. Okay, so now coming back to the space which we are creating. Yeah, this is Ram 1. I'll refresh this. So any questions on the roles so far? Yeah.
On
so
the consumption role, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Consumption on role? The consumption role, if the user still needs the space access, or only the consumption role is enough for them to access the data on the reporting layer?
That's a good question. So yes, they need the space access, but the space files access is enough. That's why it's given actually. Space files and the data warehouse consumption layer. But yeah, so this role, if you assign and create a user also, they will not be able to log in and see any of these options. So if you can try, cannot try actually. If you have to create a user for that. But yeah, if you want, you can try. And see. It will not show any of these options. And if you want to learn more about all the roles and all the different things here, so you go here to the standard roles, right? And then they there in the help documentation, they will explain all the standard roles and what the roles mean, etc. And the permissions and privileges. This is where you can read about each of the permission and privileges. So if you are coming from a Linux background or Unix background, this type of permission is easy for you to read. If not, then also fine. You can know about the acronym. So create, read, update, delete, execute, maintain, like that. So you can see, for example, what each of the privilege and has what permission. So what space files mean, what spaces mean. So for example, some of you will not know what a particular entry here means, right? So if it says catalog log, what does that mean, right? So you may not know. So you can come here and you can check what that exactly means. So they might have given one line description, explaining what it is, etc. So I would say read about the roles, and I'll put this link in today's course notes, so you can read about it.
Okay.
Yeah, but for the consumption, you don't worry. So we'll be covering how to connect SAC to DataSphere, and we'll be seeing how the exposed views look like and everything. We'll go into the details of it.
So Ram, I had a question on licensing model here. So like in SAC, you have 3 different types of license, I think 3 or 4 maybe. But here, looks like based on what you do, you don't require a special license. I see all licenses are called DataSphere license. So nothing called planning professional, planning developer, something like that.
Yeah, correct. So in SAC, like you said, there is different licensing, and each license is costlier. Like business intelligence, the cheapest, and then planning standard and planning professional, and you have analytics hub license also. So previously they had digital boardroom license as well, but now so a couple of things are not there. But in DataSphere, yes, there is only one license type, which is called DataSphere, and it all costs the same, and there is no categories. So only the 2 special licenses are the system owner license, which again doesn't count, and the support user license, which again doesn't count.
So from a cost point of view, everyone is costing the same.
Everyone is costing the same. And then there is also CPEA based
Yeah, I know
model.
that cloud crediting.
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah.
Now the consumption unit. So even the license doesn't matter. Only how much units you consume matters. So again, SAP is giving multiple options to the customers, because some customers are saying that even though we have 100 users, we are not, like, all the 100 users are not very actively using the system, right? That's why in SAC they came up with something called as concurrent licenses.
Correct. Yeah.
Whereas in DataSphere, they came up with the CPEA model, where they said, okay, so irrespective of how many users you have, you buy certain consumption units and then you use it.
No, the reason I asked this is because, again, Ram, you would know with your experience that nobody's using DataSphere standalone. They will use it with SAC, right? Because
Correct.
that's how SAP ships it. Now the problem is they're following two different licensing model, and which is creating a problem.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I think maybe after some time they'll consolidate. I feel like they are experimenting the two things. So one is the concurrent licensing model, and the other is this consumption-based CPEA licensing model. So whichever works out, maybe they'll make that the standard in both the worlds, or maybe they'll add both the options in both the things also. Because some customers like this and some customers like that. So we have to see how it evolves. But currently, yeah, like you said, the licensing in DataSphere is different than the licensing in SAC.
I think for SSC also they have come up with the same. If you're accessing SSC from the DataSphere, sorry, BTP, then it is pay as you use.
Oh, okay. Then that's good.
Mm.
I haven't read about it, but yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, they recently introduced it, but I don't know how many customers will use it, because then you have to be on the BTP platform, not like a standalone consumption.
Yeah, that's only from the BTP platform, but not on the standalone.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Coming back to the space. So today maybe we'll extend by 5-10 minutes and then we'll complete the spaces and we'll break for the day. Okay. So user assignments we have seen. So let me add myself as a space administrator so that I get certain access in this space. So RAM, scope role, create. So I added myself and I don't have to deploy or do anything because it's not a change that needs to be deployed. So it's just a user addition. But one thing that needs to happen is sometimes people ask this. So I have added myself. I even deployed it, but still I am not able to do certain things. For example, certain settings are not enabled for me or things like that. One thing could be because you just added the role, sometimes it immediately takes effect. Sometimes it requires you just a refresh, right? Sometimes this happens. This is exactly what I wanted to show you. Yeah, now I can see all the tabs are giving me error because I have changed my own role. This will not happen in the production system because there will be a separate security team who will be assigning roles to some developers, right? They'll not be assigning roles to themselves. But here, what is happening is I have assigned role to myself, and because the system remembers the space, right? So I am jumping from RAM_1, which is the space, to the different tabs. So the system is trying to go to that space. So in connections, it's trying to go to RAM1. In data builder, it is trying to go to RAM1, right? So when that happens, it is giving me error because that space, according to system, I am still not part of that space. Now the system understood and it is landing me in the data builder, not the data builder /RAM1. So if that happens, like if you modified your own role, what you have to do is you have to log out and log in. Sometimes that fixes, most of the times that fixes the issue, but sometimes even you have to clear your cookie, close your browser and log in again. Again, this is not a scenario that will typically happen in a production environment because you will not be assigning your own role. Even in SAC, it is not even possible to change your own role because of the same reason. It will the cookie will remember something and then you will be doing something. That's a problem. So now, as you are practicing, when you add yourself to your space, you have to log out and log in once so that the system recognizes your new role. Then only you will be able to access that particular space. So now if I go to my data builder or business builder. Now I see my 3 spaces, right? Even RAM1 is recognized. So even, in data builder also it will be recognized. So if I go to the space management now, and if I open the RAM1, and if I go to edit, right? So now, so I am now the system is recognizing me as the admin, and then even I have access in the space to do all the things. Now this section, the database access section, is where we can create the database users. So we'll be creating the user, and then we'll be seeing how to connect to the database, etc. But for now, you can understand there are 2 types of users you can create. So one is with read privileges, and one is also with write privileges. So you can give if you want some some suffix. So generally, whatever is your space name, the schema it gives you access to will have this as the suffix. So for read access, you are reading the same space. So if I have a space called RAM_1, which on which I will be using the data builder and the business builder, everything to create the objects from DataSphere. For reading, yes, you can directly access that same schema, and you will not corrupt anything and so on. But for writing, it asks you a suffix, and then it creates your OpenSQL schema, which is your space name followed by the suffix. So it's a different schema, right? Where you can do all the edit operations. So we can create, with read access, and you can also allow the user to create other users with grant permissions, and you can allow them to have HDI containers. You can allow them to have rate access, and if you want audit logs, you can do that. I'm not doing it because it will fill the space unnecessarily. So I can say create, and it will take some time after we deploy to create that. And once it's created, the one of the default way to access is this button will become enabled, Database Explorer. So you can use this option, and then you can say open Database Explorer, and that will load the HANA Database Explorer. That's one way. The other ways we'll see how to connect, so maybe some external tooling. I'll see if I can show you. Maybe sometimes, you want to connect from some VS Code or Eclipse or something like offline tool that you want to, not offline tool, I mean desktop tool that you want to connect. So this is more than enough, in my opinion, HANA Database Explorer to do all your things. But sometimes people prefer to do external tooling. So we'll also see in one of the sessions how to connect to the external tooling. And again, coming to HDI containers, if you already know HDI containers in HANA, you know what they are and so on. So we'll not be diving into the HDI container part in this training, but I will share you a nice article. So if you are ever required to do this, you will know from that how to do how to enable access to particular HDI containers in your space. So I'll share a document, and from your personal choice, you can go into that. And if you have questions, feel free to ask that to me. Connections, we will see that. So previously the connections were a system level. So now the connections are space specific. So here you will not do anything. If you click go to connections, it will go to the connections tab only. So we will be seeing connections in detail. So we'll be creating a lot of connections. So we'll see that then. So the time data. So when you click this create time data button, so what is going to happen is in the space, in the RAM1 space. So if I open the space now, there will be nothing. There will be no tables, no views, nothing, right? It will be an empty space. But in general, what happens is you might want some standard tables for the time, date, hierarchy, and everything. And every time you don't have to keep on creating it, right? So in HANA, there are some standard date tables and date tables and views. So when you click this button in any space, create time and date tables. So what happens is you just have to create, you have to give the year between which you want to generate this data. So if you know your business is only generating data between 2010 and 2030, you can give that as the minimum year, and all the tables that are generated will have only data between this, right? And then if you want to change the name of certain tables, yes, you can change it. Change the description, but not the actual technical ID. So once you are the main setting you have to do is the year only. So once you are done with that, you can click create, and the system will auto generate a lot of tables and views in your space, and that can be useful in other, while you're creating views or something. When you want to create join, we'll see that some examples of where this timetable is useful, right? So we will create joins and things like that, associations between our tables that we created and the standard timetables to make use of the date hierarchy, time hierarchy, and so on. So yeah, from the space administrator perspective, the only thing they are doing is they are judging between what year to what year the time data is required. So keep the years minimum so that it will be, the table size will be small. So even if you don't know, try to keep as minimum as possible. And anytime you can edit it. That's not an option. That's not a blocker. So anytime you can edit it. So yeah, I would say keep it in the minimum and generate it. And coming to the auditing setting,
shared, right, Ram? Generally, because currently all spaces will need its own time data, right? Or is it possible to create a dedicated space with whatever time organization wide you need? You create that time modeling, and can we share it with other spaces?
Yeah, technically we can, but generally we don't do that. So yeah, technically it doesn't block you from doing that. The things like currency conversion and all, yes, we will maintain one space for the technical objects, and we share from that space to all the other spaces that need it. But so far I haven't seen in a customer project the time data being shared, but I don't see the reason why. Like if you want to do it that way, yes, it can be done.
And it only supports year, quarter, month, days. So if I have a half year, it's not possible.
You have to create a custom table. Yes, you have to copy
from that point I was asking. So if I create a custom for a
then yes, then you have to maintain. Yeah, if you have your own datetime hierarchies, then yes, I have seen customers using a dedicated technical space where they keep their tables and views and they use it. But the standard tables I have seen, like in every space only they will enable it.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, coming to the last option.
Sorry, Ram, I have one question regarding this time dimensions. So do we have any setting for the factory calendar?
No, not directly in this. So this will create only, these are all, so if you're from HANA background, you will know that. So these are all standard HANA level timetables, and based on that, they have created some views. So yes, the fiscal year period, we can support it, but it is in a different way. So I will show that when we are seeing some examples, and I will also show that how it looks in SAC also. But yeah, in this time date settings, it is not possible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So this audit space is nothing but, so as a space administrator, you want to see like what are all the operations that have happened in your space. For that, you can say, I want to enable the log for all the read operations. This will give you very extensive log, because every time someone clicks and opens something, that is considered a read operation. Or if you want only the change operations, if someone updates something or modifies something, then only if you want logs. And by default, it has very minimal days, because this log is very huge, and it will it will lead to your disk space being full with logs. So that's why SAP gives a minimum space. But depending on your organization, maybe you can change that. You can keep 30 days of logs, and you can decide whether you want only read or change log, etc. And then I'll show you how these logs are recorded and how you can check these logs, etc. in later in later sessions. But yeah, this is where as a space administrator, you can enable the logging. But I would say like in all your spaces, don't enable this. That will just waste the space. But later in one of the sessions, I'll show you how it is useful and how you can see the audit of the logs. Okay, so that is most of the things about spaces. The only thing which I have not covered is the priority of the space, right? So the priority of the space is required to define, which space has more importance. The load coming from which space has more importance. So, for example, in BW and in traditional SAP systems, we have something called as work processes, right? So that are the number of processes that can run in parallel at one time in that application server. So if all the work processes are full, the incoming jobs will be in the waiting status. So they'll keep on waiting until one work process gets free. Same way in DataSphere also, there is a limited resources, right? So at one time, only certain number of jobs can run, right? So if that is the case, if at one peak point, if all your jobs have exhausted the resources, then which job should take the priority, right? So if, for example, if 4 or 5 jobs are coming and they are in the queue, so which job gets the more priority? So the job that is coming from the space, which is having the high priority, will take the most priority. So I'll show you in next session how to set the space priority, and you will set the business critical things like finance reports and everything on a high priority, and then you will set the internal reports like the consumption data or the security data, the logs, and whatever you build for internal usage, non-business critical things, you will keep it on low priority, so that whenever there is a system resource crunch, the higher priority will always get a job to run. By default, everything will come at the priority of 5, which means it's medium priority. So if you keep all the spaces at 5, the problem is, so they will get equal priority and it will be working like first come first serve basis. So that is not always the good thing, because some space will be really, really business critical. So that spaces ideally have to be higher on the priority. So we'll see it on the next session, like how do we set this priority and so on. So yeah, that's all for today. So we have seen how to create a space. So from the next session, we'll see how to create objects inside the space. So we'll start with connection. We'll go to tables, views, and so on.
Ram, Pratap here. Hello, Ram. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Pratap, go ahead.
One small request, Ram. So actually, can you provide some notes with your explanation for some kind of notes, because it's very helpful for us, because we are very new, and even my colleagues also expecting same thing. So is it very helpful?
So we will be sharing one this Google Word document, right? So in that, so whatever sessions we have covered today, so I will put any notes and all the relevant documentation links and everything. So day wise, you will have notes in that learning portal you have. Along with the recording, you will also have the notes.
Okay, so that with your explanation, right? Some kind of, because in that links we can find only the navigations and some sort of 1 or 2 lines explanation. So, but your point of view is it's very much clear, so that it will be very helpful for us to understand, and some points, and it's really very helpful, because most of the people, and that means like from my point of view. So
okay. So I'll try to explain it. Yeah, I get your point. Sure.
Yeah. So notes means we will take some points and we will note it ourselves in an offline. So
okay, sure.
Yeah, just notes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sure.
Thanks for the
Thank you all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you. Bye.